Thank you, Les Concora. Myself and my colleagues in the Rural Independent Group are urging all TDs to support our Dáil motion, demanding the Government to hold an urgent mini-budget to mitigate and address the spiralling cost of living crisis on multiple fronts. This motion seeks to have the Government recognise the cost of living crisis as a national emergency. This would necessitate a comprehensive and robust package of measures intended to support those less well-off and impacted sectors via allocating financial aid and slashing consumption taxes. The current cost of living crisis is financially crippling to all lower-income earners, including pensioners, struggling mortgage holders and the unemployed. It is also having disproportionate impact on all rural residents and farmers across the country. Cost of electricity bills gone from 200 to 500 every 2 months, Minister. And this Government, what did they do? Your answer to that is give them 200 for the year, and that will cover them. This is not enough. It's nowhere enough, and it's nothing short of an insult to people who are struggling. Fertilisers crisis. Irish farmers are facing crippling costs for feed, fertiliser and fuel, which has a potential to wipe out many viable farmers. Remember, Minister, you are the Minister for Agriculture. A tonne of manure has gone from 300 to 900. The European Union has said the Irish Government can intervene. You've done nothing. You're sitting on your hands, waiting here because it's a green policy. Make people suffer. Make sure, give them no aid, no help whatsoever. Make them stop driving, make them stop spreading bag manure. Where are you going to stop? Where are you going to stop? Or when is someone in Fianna Fáil wake up and say, well, this is not the roots of Fianna Fáil, this is not the way we worked. We worked for the people. We didn't make them suffer, and that's what you're trying to do. The cost of fuel. People ringing me, and I presume every other TD inside here, meeting me on the street, they cannot afford to put fuel in the cars. But this, again, is what the Greens want. A government with Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael bully the people and price fuel so high that no one can afford to travel. And remember one thing, Minister, every one of ETDs will have to face the people, and they're very, very hungry and very anxious to meet you at the doorstep. And my God, if you do, you'll get a fair bit of a reddening, and you'll get your, I won't say what, out the door and down the road, a lot of them. Young families, pensioners are frozen in their homes. These are the people who built Ireland. This is what our government have done to these pensioners of Ireland. They cannot afford to heat their homes. Maybe this government are immune to us consistently repeating ourselves, but it is the truth of the matter. So many of our pensioners are slightly over the limit to receive the fuel allowance. They cannot access it. They cannot access the retrofitting scheme because they probably got a couple of rolls of insulation in their attic 8 or 10 years ago. I received a letter Monday night from a constituent who is suffering from cancer. She cannot access the fuel allowance. And I read it myself late Monday night before I came up here early Tuesday morning. She said, I'm frozen in my own home. I am suffering from cancer, and I don't believe for 1 minute that this is a once-off. I get these letters and calls constantly. Housing in Ireland is the most expensive country in the European Union for housing. Costs which have record rents, the highest mortgage interest rates in the EU, and a chronic lack of supply that caused house prices to increase by 14% in the year to November 2021. The skimpy package of measures recently announced by the government is grossly insufficient, given the depth and the impact of the crisis. That is why we are tabling this motion in the Dáil, which is aimed at forcing an out-of-touch government into holding a mini-budget. For almost a year now, my colleagues and I of the Rural Independent Group have been emphasising the need to tackle inflationary pressure brought about predominantly by the government's frenzied green policies and crippling carbon taxes. Unfortunately, the government has been idle, allowing costs to soar while simultaneously benefiting from record VAT, excise duties and carbon tax fuels, home heating, electricity, household goods, building materials, fertiliser and animal feeds. VAT, for instance, is calculated as a percentage of the price of goods or services, meaning as those prices inflate, so too do VAT receipts for the government. Thus, inflation means higher prices and more money flowing into the exchequer. Increased transport and home fuel costs are causing extreme financial hardship for many households, small businesses and farmers. Therefore, we believe that the best way to ensure price falls rapidly is to reduce VAT, excise duties and the carbon tax on all fuel types, at least this year until the end of 2022. The greatest advantage of using consumption taxes to provide relief against inflation is that the impact can be felt by the public immediately, with the EU Commission already recommending that Member States take its own course. We believe the government must now finally act. The only meaningful way to tackle current inflation and protect consumers is through taxation release and increasing all fixed social welfare payments by €20 a week. The budget 2022's €5 increase in weekly social welfare rates is grossly insufficient to keep pace with rising prices, resulting in a real cut of living standards for those on fixed incomes. In tandem with these measures, financially pressed farmers require a multi-million euro package, as called for in our motion, to mitigate a 300% jump in fertiliser costs, combined with the impacts of fuel fees and energy spikes, which are crippling to all farmers. The latest country-by-country scorecard from the European Commission warning the inflationary cost of living pressures will persist in Ireland for 2022 and will rise faster this year than any other country in Europe. In its winter 2022 outlook, the EU projects an average Irish rate of inflation of 4.6% this year, which is higher than the 3.5% rate it forecasted for the Eurozone as a whole. In another warning about soaring cost of living crisis in Ireland, inflation, many leading economists are warning that prices are likely to remain high through 2022 and beyond, the food and fuel becoming increasingly less affordable. Minister, it's time to act. We're calling and need to act for the last 12 months. I'd appreciate you'd sit up and listen for once going forward.